Breaking news! Something is starting to happen with this defense, and the latest practice gave us another clear sign of it. The defense has shown dominance and chemistry. Young players have continued to stand out. Myles Garrett has returned, and we need to talk about that and a few other things. On the 15th, the Rams face the Chiefs in their first preseason game. We know it's just a warm-up, but we need a win to head into the upcoming games, including the Week 1 matchup against the 49ers, with confidence. Stick with me until the end, because we have some red-hot news for this weekend. Before we move on, make sure you smash that like button, but only do it if you believe the Rams can beat the Chiefs on the 15th. Man, I truly believe they're capable of it. If you've been a fan for over 12 years, type this: Go Rams! Let's get to the Super Bowl! All right, let's start by talking about the Rams' defense. For the second straight practice, the Rams' defense showed it was in charge. This is important because it wasn't just one star taking center stage. Different players won their matchups and made life difficult for the offense. Wesley Bailey kept generating pressure and was constantly right on the quarterback. The undrafted free agent had a play against Ty Simpson where the pressure arrived so fast that, in a real game, it could easily have resulted in a sack. Omar Speights also delivered a defensive highlight when Stetson Bennett tried to pass to Puka Nacua on a curl route. Speights stayed with the play, reached over, and deflected the ball. Quentin Lake also got in on the action with an interception following an apparent miscommunication between Bennett and Terrence Ferguson. But Puka still found a way to remind everyone why he's so dangerous. With Lake in coverage, Nacua reached out and made a spectacular one-handed catch on a pass that was slightly out in front of him. It was another classic Puka moment, but by the end of practice, the main takeaway remained the same. For the second consecutive day, the Rams' defense had come out on top, and that defense received another piece of great news on Wednesday because Myles Garrett was back on the field. Garrett had missed 4 consecutive Rams practices while dealing with soreness in his lower body. There was never a specific major injury identified in the information coming out of camp, and after the Rams had a rest day Tuesday, Garrett returned Wednesday and was able to participate fully. That is exactly what Rams fans wanted to see. There is always going to be some concern when a player of Garrett's importance misses several practices in a row, but his own comments suggested he was not overly worried about the situation. Garrett joked that he is allowed to get sore at this point in his life because he is old. Of course, 30 years old is not old in everyday life, but football is different. Garrett has already put a lot of NFL snaps on his body, and the Rams clearly understand that there is no reason to push an established veteran harder than necessary during training camp. We saw that same philosophy Wednesday with Matthew Stafford and Davante Adams, who were both given scheduled veteran rest days. There was no injury situation reported with either one. The Rams were simply managing their veterans, and Garrett fits perfectly into that approach. The goal is not to prove what Myles Garrett can do during one training camp practice. Everyone already knows what kind of player he is. The goal is to have him healthy and ready when the games actually matter. But Garrett's value to this team is already becoming about more than what happens when he rushes the passer. One of the most encouraging things coming out of Rams camp has been hearing the way Garrett talks about the players around him. He has made it clear that sharing what he knows with his teammates is important. The younger players want to learn from him, and Garrett is willing to help them. But what makes his approach interesting is that he does not seem interested in turning every player into another version of Myles Garrett. He wants to learn from them, too. Garrett wants to understand their styles, what they are seeing, and how they approach rushing the passer. If there is something from his own game that can make a teammate better, he is willing to share it. At the same time, he does not want that player to lose the qualities that got him to the NFL. That is leadership. It is not simply walking into a room with the biggest resume and expecting everyone to follow you. It is recognizing that the room already contains talented players and asking how you can help bring the best out of them. Garrett said the Rams have a room full of players capable of making plays, and he wants to help put them in position to do exactly that. Now think about what that could mean for a defense where players such as Bailey and Spites are already making themselves noticed in practice. And then think about one more name, Aaron Donald, because Garrett was also asked about Donald, and his answer only made this entire situation more interesting. Garrett said he will probably talk to Donald soon. He hopes the two can get together, spend some time together and talk. But Garrett also made something very clear. He does not know exactly how Donald is feeling about everything, and he is not going to pressure him in either direction. That is important. Whatever Aaron Donald decides has to be Aaron Donald's decision. But Rams fans, this story has now reached a point where it is becoming very difficult not to imagine the possibilities. Because Aaron Donald did not simply show up around the Los Angeles Rams, he worked out for them. Officially, according to the NFL transaction language, the Rams gave Aaron Donald a tryout. Yes, that sounds as strange as you think it does. Aaron Donald having to try out for the Los Angeles Rams might be one of the funniest sentences we hear during this entire training camp. Sean McVay clearly thought so, too. When McVay was told that Donald's appearance had come across the NFL wire as a tryout, he immediately had some fun with it. McVay called it the best tryout the Rams had ever had and joked that he thought Donald could make the team. That is classic McVay. But after the joke came the real explanation. According to McVay, describing it as a tryout was essentially the way the Rams could get Donald a workout within the NFL parameters they needed to follow. And this is where things become much more interesting, because the workout happened, and Aaron Donald apparently looked really good. This was not a situation where Donald walked onto the field, moved around a little bit, and everybody smiled because one of the greatest players in franchise history was back in the building. The reaction from the Rams people who watched him was extremely positive. McVay was clearly having fun talking about it. Rams defensive line coach Giff Smith reportedly called it the best workout, or best tryout, he had ever done. Then defensive coordinator Chris Shula added another important piece. Shula said Donald looked really good. And then came the sentence that probably made every Rams fan start imagining something that would have sounded almost impossible not long ago. Shula has thought about what it could look like to pair Aaron Donald with Myles Garrett. Just read those two names together again. Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, on the same defensive front. That possibility alone is enough to completely change the energy around Rams training camp. Nothing in the information we have says Donald has officially decided to return. That distinction is important, and we are not going to turn speculation into fact. But look at what has actually happened. Donald has been around. The Rams have now worked him out. McVay is openly joking about him being able to make the team. The defensive line coach came away extremely impressed. The defensive coordinator said Donald looked really good and acknowledged that he has thought about pairing Donald with Garrett, and Garrett himself is hoping to speak with Donald. That is why this story feels different now. Before the workout, Rams fans could dream about a Donald return. After the workout, there is something tangible to discuss. The Rams actually saw where Donald is physically. And, judging from the comments afterward, they liked what they saw. A lot. That does not make a comeback official. It does not guarantee what Donald wants to do next. Garrett himself has been careful not to push Donald toward a decision, and that is the right approach. But you cannot blame Rams fans for getting excited. You cannot hear Chris Shula admit that he has thought about Donald and Garrett together and then expect people not to imagine it themselves. Imagine being an opposing offensive coordinator and having to prepare for that problem. Where do you send the protection? Who gets the extra attention? And what happens to everyone else on this Rams defensive front when an offense has to worry about two players with that kind of ability? That is the part of this possibility that becomes so fascinating. Garrett has already been talking about helping the players around him become better without changing what makes them successful. Now picture Donald bringing his presence into that same room. And remember what was already happening during Wednesday's practice. Bailey was creating pressure. Spites was making plays. Lake got an interception. The defensive line was giving the second-team offensive line serious problems. The starting offensive line was holding up better and communicating well, but the defense as a whole walked away feeling like it had won the day for a second consecutive practice. That means we are not talking about trying to rescue a defense that has shown nothing. We are talking about a unit that is already generating excitement in camp and then asking what could happen if Aaron Donald became part of it. That is a completely different conversation. And Donald's workout could not have happened without everybody noticing. There has already been Aaron Donald energy around training camp. Fans have shown up wearing his jersey. There have been Donald signs. His name has continued to hang over this team. Now the players and coaches are being pulled into that conversation because there is an actual workout to discuss, and their reactions have not exactly cooled anybody down. When your head coach jokes about it being the best tryout ever, your defensive line coach is extremely impressed. Your defensive coordinator says the player looked really good and starts thinking about pairing him with Garrett. What are Rams fans supposed to do? Of course, people are going to dream. Because everyone knows what Aaron Donald means to this organization. And this is not about pretending he has already made his choice. It is about understanding how significant Wednesday was. Donald put himself through a workout in front of the Rams. That happened. The Rams got a chance to see him. That happened. The reaction was positive. That happened. Everything after that remains something we have to wait and see. Garrett's approach might actually be the perfect way to look at this. He wants to talk to Donald. He wants to understand where Donald's head is, but he is not going to push him. Neither should anybody else. Donald has earned the right to make this decision on his own terms. But while we wait, there is nothing wrong with recognizing just how unbelievable the football possibility would be. Donald and Garrett. Not one or the other. Both. And perhaps the most exciting part is thinking about what their presence could mean for every other defender around them. When offenses have to dedicate so much attention to elite pass rushers, somebody else gets an opportunity. Maybe that is Bailey. Maybe that is another young defender. Maybe pressure starts coming from places an offense simply cannot account for on every snap. That is the dream scenario. Again, it is only a possibility until Donald decides what he wants to do. But Wednesday moved the conversation forward because Donald actually got on the field and showed the Rams what he could still do, and apparently he can still do quite a bit. That alone makes this one of the biggest stories around the Rams right now. But while all eyes are understandably focused on the defense and Donald, there is another young Rams player worth watching as this team continues to develop. Terrence Ferguson. Ferguson showed real promise as a rookie last season, even though Los Angeles did not give him a huge number of opportunities. So Rams fans, this is your team, and this is the moment to get behind these guys. Training camp is where possibilities begin, where young players fight to earn their place, and where a single development can completely change what we imagine for the season ahead. If you believe this Rams defense is building something special, say it. If you want to see more of Terrence Ferguson, say it. And most importantly, if the thought of Aaron Donald lining up next to Myles Garrett has you ready for football right now, I want to hear from you. Tell me what that duo could mean for this defense and how far you believe this Rams team can go. Keep believing, keep supporting this team, and stay right here with us, because if Wednesday was any indication of what is coming, Rams fans could have a very exciting season ahead.